Okay, it's 6:01. Let's get started. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I hope you're looking forward to class. Maybe not, but this is my favorite one to teach when we hit behavior therapy and cognitive behavior therapy, because this is the one I think is so important for us as school counselors. So I hope you found that in your reading, and I hope you get some really good takeaways tonight that you can start using right away in your practicums, and even if you're in a classroom right now. So let me quick take roll here, take attendance. Okay, Stacy, I saw you. And Stacy, you are ABA person, our ABA specialist.
Yeah, I am. So a lot of the stuff I was reading, I was like, oh, I know that. Oh yeah, EDCs. Oh yeah, I do that all the time. So it was really cool to see and like read different perspectives of it.
Yeah, so when we get to that, if there's something you want to interject, just unmute yourself and talk about if you have some examples of things or something we could learn from.
No, yeah, totally.
Definitely add in, because I am not necessarily trained professional in that. It's just something I've learned and kept up on, through seminars and stuff. So Daniel's here. Brittany. Sarah, Sandra. Rachel. Cool. And great. All right. That's taken care of. All right. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. Here we go. Oh dear. That did not share well. Ah, there we go. All right. Can everyone see that? Now I can't see all of you, so if I'm talking and I'm going too fast, just unmute yourselves and interrupt me, okay? So as I said, we're covering behavior and cognitive behavior therapy this week. And so I wanted to go over our expectations for this week. You're reading Corey chapters 9 and 10. You're watching the case of Stan. Now we're finishing up video 1 and starting video 2. And Stan, I think Corey does a good job of showing Stan trying to do some homework in one of the episodes, and then also going on a date and what happened on the date, and some thoughts that he's dealing with when he's showing how to use cognitive behavior therapy. So make sure you watch those. And then of course we have our discussion board, which is kind of a repeat of the same expectations, which is you're going to pick one key idea from each theory, compare their similarities and differences. You're going to pick one theory for your personal reflection, and then discuss the relevance of the two theories to school counseling. So hopefully, if you haven't already posted on your discussion board what we're going to talk about tonight, will help you and give you ideas too. And then yay, no written assignments due this week. I did want to say something quick though, because if you remember at the beginning of the course, I warned you that at the end of the final week of the course, things come fast and furious. So you've got 2 written assignments due within like a 6-day period. So if you want to do your next written assignment early and for me to grade, I'd be happy to do that, because that helps me with my workload too. So when you get to that week I obviously will have a video set up that will explain expectations, but I just briefly wanted to cover the assignment number 4. So, and basically, I think it's a really useful assignment. You're going to read about narrative therapy. It's one of our postmodern approaches. I think it's chapter 13. Don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a postmodern approach. And when I first started teaching this class, I was like, what is narrative therapy have to do really with school counseling? And it's interesting how, when, at least what I felt when I read about narrative therapy, I didn't totally get how it was applied in the school counseling setting. And then once you watch these videos, and there's 2 videos to watch, 2 kind of case studies, um, it becomes kind of apparent, and you can kind of pick out how he's using narrative therapy with his students. So there's 2 videos. If you really want to save time, just pick one, watch one, and you just have to write on one. And once you watch the video, you're going to write a paper describing the key concepts of narrative therapy, highlighting the therapeutic techniques and procedures, the multicultural perspective, the implications for that, a description of at least 2 incidences during the counseling session that identifies how the therapist is using the narrative therapy strategies. That's kind of the heart of the paper. And then your impressions of how the client, which are the students, is responding to the session. And then, of course, you have to always have your personal reflection time on the use of narrative therapy and its implications for school counselors. Okay, so that is due May 2nd. And then remember that larger final assignment, your signature assignment, is due May 7th. And that's the one where you're selecting 4 therapies that you think that you like that would be useful for school counseling, and one that you probably wouldn't use. And that's just a real generalization of the assignment. But so yeah, any questions on that so far? Okay. And a note to you too about discussion board 4. I started working and reading through those before their due date. And so I had made a lot of comments and written up a lot of comments in the comment sections when I was grading it, and exited Blackboard, and somehow my comments weren't all saved. So some of you got some comments, and some of you might just get a couple words because I didn't have the time to go back and recreate all my comments. But really, in general, you guys are all doing a good job covering all of the necessary points. And again, doing so very thoroughly and with good analysis. So keep up the good work. Okay. I haven't heard from anyone regarding our next live class, which is Cinco de Mayo. So I'm assuming we're all okay meeting on Cinco de Mayo. If you're not, speak now. So we could do a Tuesday or Thursday. I personally, doesn't matter to me. Okay. Moving right along. So bring some chips and salsa and a margarita to our next final live session. We'll have a little celebration. I'm just kidding. Okay. So just to give an overview, and this is straight from the textbook, behavior and cognitive behavior therapy share kind of these attributes. And remember, behavior therapy started first in the 1950s and 60s, and then cognitive behavior therapy grew out of that. So they really are very similar in their approaches, and they're obviously based off the same thing. So, but remember that they both share attributes of being a collaborative relationship between client and therapist. So you're working as a team together. I think that's a great approach too for school counselors. They believe that psychological distress is caused by cognitive or thought processes. Changing cognitions, changing the way you think, will cause a change in affect and behavior. They both have that as a baseline belief. It has a present-centered, time-limited focus. So you're not spending a lot of time delving into past experiences or past traumas, that sort of thing. You're looking at behavior and cognitions and trying to change those. Um, and most of these therapies can be done in like 6 to 8 therapy sessions. So again, that time limited focus, I think is a benefit for school counselors too, because some of these other theories, a lot of delving into the past and stuff is going to take a lot of time that we don't necessarily have, right? And then the therapist in this approach takes an active and directive stance. They're really, gone is the blank slate and all that, or repeating necessarily things back to the client or asking, what do you think is the answer to your question? Things like that. No, you're going to be taking action. You're going to be directing them. And this last point, it's an educational treatment focus, focusing on specific and structural target problems. So you're going to be educating them on what their thought processes are, what their behaviors are, what's triggering them, and how to change that. Okay. Any questions on those? All clear? Okay. All right. So this is kind of how behavior and cognitive behavior therapy, just kind of one area of development stacked on top of another. And you may know this from a basic psych class that first there was the development of classical conditioning, and that was the big study with Pavlov's dogs. And if you haven't ever heard of that, it's he was able to show that he could pair behavior with another stimulus. So he had a dog, and he took the dog and he showed a dog a treat, and the dog would start to salivate. And he kept doing that. And then pretty soon he paired the treat. At the same time, he inserted the sound of a bell. And so the dog got the treat and heard the bell at the same time. Pretty soon he took away the treat and he just would sound the bell, and the dog would salivate because it had paired that bell with the introduction of food. So that is straight baseline classical behavioral conditioning. And then from there, it developed further into operant conditioning, where behavior is influenced by the consequences that follow an event. And that's really kind of where we're at now. In that, well, we'll get to that. I'll show you more examples of that. So from classical and operant conditioning came social cognitive theory by Bandera. And basically, he took the concepts of classical and operant conditioning and combined them with just observational learning, just being able to observe certain behaviors and what that teaches someone about themselves or about others. And then out of that then grew the movement of cognitive behavior therapy, that modification of thoughts changes behavior. Okay. Questions on that? We're good? All right. Okay. So in behavior therapy and cognitive behavior therapy, they both have an ABC approach, but the ABCs are different and stand for a little bit different things. So I wanted to go over them so it's not totally confusing. The book talks about functional behavior analysis, which I think are super interesting. Basically, it's imagine a situation where a student comes into your office with a problem or with a behavior, and you're asked to work with them on it. Here is the type of model you might use to try and figure out what is going on. So in the ABC model here of behavior, we have the behavior, which is B in the middle, and that's the things that people say or do. Okay. If someone comes to your office with, let's say you have a boy who's throwing a tantrum, then you're going to look at, okay, how do I help this child? You're going to look at the antecedents, or what happened before the behavior. What was the trigger of the behavior? What happened prior to or triggered the behavior to cause that behavior to happen? So that's your A, your antecedent happens, and then your behavior. And then C, your consequence happens. And depending on what consequence happens determines whether that behavior will increase or decrease. So we might look at our student who throws a tantrum, and upon discussion with a teacher and the student find out, well, he only throws a tantrum. I'm picking a he, could be anybody, right? But he only throws a tantrum when the teacher puts a math paper on his desk and it's math time. Aha, so now we know something's going on with math. And then what happens after the tantrum? What is the consequence? What does the teacher do? Does she ignore? Does she punish? Does she let him get out of the homework or the assignment? If she does, then that behavior would probably increase, right? So again, you look at the antecedent, the behavior that happens, and then the consequence.
Oh, and then I also would want to add something too.
Sure, go.
Usually with the ABCs, usually it depends on the function of the behavior, depending on the consequence. So like if it's, obviously it's a function of attention, then from there, the consequence would most likely not give in to attention. It would be like ignoring. So I think it's important to always remember like the function of the behavior, just because it would depend on like the consequence, because not all consequences are going to be the same either for each student. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely. And that is great input and leads to kind of our next slide, which is that there's 4 consequences of behavior. There are reinforcements, which increase behavior, and there are punishments, which decrease behavior. And then there's positive and negative reinforcement, positive and negative punishment. And positive doesn't mean good, it means adding something. And negative doesn't mean bad, it means taking away something. So in our situation where the boy is throwing a tantrum, we find out, let's say, the function of that behavior is to get out of doing math work because math work he feels is too hard. And so in order to decrease that, we would probably maybe try ignoring. We might remove a privilege, do a negative punishment. We might try, yeah, I think I would try a negative punishment actually in that situation. But you can see it just depends on the type of behavior. If it's a good behavior, we want to reinforce that. We want to keep that going. We want that positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. If it's a behavior we want to diminish, then we look for those positive punishments or negative punishments. Does that make sense? Stacy, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you hit the nail on those. Yeah, I would say, well, the example you gave, just to make, I would say that's more of like escape. So we would want to go more to like decreasing, like you mentioned, decreasing like the workload, just so we would prevent them from escaping. So yeah, that's
Right.
so yeah.
Right. And from there, you might, you're going to obviously go further than that and be like, okay, well, maybe he's bad at math. Maybe what we need to do is chunk up the
Yeah, in little sections would
small
help.
sections and give him rewards if he does the first 5 problems, and give him another reward if he does the next 5 problems. And so, but like you said, the key is really finding out what the function of that behavior is, what's triggering it too, right? And then understanding how to use consequences to your advantage to change behavior.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Does anyone have like an example they want to put through the ABC behavioral method?
I could think of one.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
It's because of one of my clients. So one of my clients, for example, they let me think. I'll do one of my kiddos today. So he has a biting behavior, so that's automatic. So there's no function to it. He just automatically does it. So an antecedent would be I gave him a demand to push in his chair, and then he ends up him biting his hand, and then from there my consequence would be that I would redirect him to using his chew. So he has like a certain chew that he'll use instead of biting his hand. So that's just an example that I have. but there's so many different ones just depending on the behavior and depending on what the child has. But yeah, that's my example.
But that's an interesting one because what you're saying, the function, it's automatic, like maybe
Yeah,
he's
so
so
there's no
impulsive
yeah,
or
so there's
so,
no reasoning. There's no reasoning like for him to escape something. There's not a he just automatically does it. So instead of, we've tried different plans and stuff, but parents have a chew for him always on. So if they ever see it, they just redirect right away for him to use his chew instead of his like biting his hand or putting his fingers in his mouth.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, some of you, for little kids, they do have, they're not toys. They're like STEM kind of,
There's stimuli or there's
yeah.
sensory toys just for them to, instead of, harming themselves, they'll be using that instead. So it's like the alternative behavior as well.
So we use this like when we have some kindergartners sometimes who are really orally fixated or chewing on pencils or erasers all the time. And we might give them one of those that they can chew on and just have in their mouth. And a lot of times it helps them focus.
No, yeah, totally. I would totally do that too. If I had a little one that would always like to put, their fingers in their mouth, sometimes they can't even, it just happens, it's automatic. So it's good to have something for them as a replacement of doing that. So I totally agree with that. I would too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. So any questions on that before we move on to the ABCs of cognitive therapy? So again, we're really looking solely focusing on behavior and those consequences. We're not delving into the thought process. Whereas when we move on to cognitive behavioral therapy, the ABCs are a little bit different. We have our A, which is our activating event. An event happens, and that triggers not behavior yet, but belief. What does that person believe about the activating event? And then that leads to C, to the consequence, which is the behavior. So you have your activating event, which could be externally something happened to somebody or internally focused. That activating event happens, there's a belief that happens. It could be a rational belief, or it could be irrational. And then the consequence could be positive or negative. It could be a positive behavior or a negative behavior based on how that event is filtered through a person's belief or thought process. Okay, so let's use an example of, say, a high school student self-harming. Let's say a girl self-harming comes to your office, and so you have this consequence. It's a negative C, a negative consequence, right? The self-harm has happened. You might have the job of starting to help her go down the path of identifying what the activating event was and what her beliefs about that event were that caused her then to have the consequence of self-harm. So the activating event could be something like boyfriend broke up with her. Then we're asking, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking when that happened? Oh, I'm thinking I'm never going to find love. Nobody likes me. I'm ugly. He's cheating on me. All these like negative thoughts that you can then attack. And I'll show you a way you can do that. But you can approach those thoughts and try and restructure them or challenge them. And then add in, okay, next time when if this trigger happens, this is the thought process we want to go through so we don't end up in a self-harm situation again. Okay, any questions on that? Really? Not a single question, huh?
I have a question, actually, not about this per se, but just generally speaking, and do you know, and I don't know if you know the answer, but in our program, are we going to have more, I don't know, coursework around these more modern, maybe is a better word, theories? And like, I find these so interesting and I think probably very useful, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious.
I think you're going to hit some more of it when you are taking classes that have to do with special populations and diverse populations, and dealing specifically with students with special needs and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But I would say, like, when I went through my program, obviously that was a long time ago, but I learned it mostly on the job
Field
during
work.
practicum and field
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. That's all.
Yeah.
Because they're really interesting. But I feel like we're just getting the, the bare bones from you and from the textbook. And so I was just wondering. That's all.
Yeah. And
Thank
it's
you.
one of those things, again, it's like, again, it's a tool, put it in your toolkit. And when you can get further training, when you find seminars on it, go to it and dive into it deeper.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, sure. Okay. So let's talk about behavior therapy techniques. And there were a bunch of them listed in the book. I don't have a ton of experience using all of them. Certainly, I'm sure, you'd really have to specialize in that. But remember, behavior therapy techniques, they focus directly on observable behavior, current determinants of behavior, and learning experiences that promote change. So that's what all of the techniques are going to have in common. So one of the things they listed was progressive muscle relaxation, and I'll show you an example of that. It's basically you're going throughout your body and tensing up a muscle and then releasing it and doing deep breathing at the same time. This is something you might want to use if you have a kiddo come to your office who's really anxious or in a panic attack and needs to calm down. System desensitization by Wolpe is a classical conditioning technique, and it's basically you are learning to pair more positive thoughts as you experience more and more stress. So I think the example they gave in the book was like a fear of flying, and you would generate that fear of flying, but at the same time trying to create a state of calm. So you're pairing that fear instead with those anxiety producing feelings, but with a feeling of calm, so that it eventually causes you to be desensitized to that anxiety, to that situation. And similar to that are the exposure and flooding therapies. I find these really interesting too. And I wish I could do this at school. For some, in a way, we do it with students, like, for example, who have a total fear of school. And, I tell their parents, we just have to push them through. We have to expose them. And as you keep exposing them, even if they end up vomiting at school or coming to school in their pajamas, doesn't matter, get them here, we'll get them into class. And eventually the exposure to the environment diminishes the anxiety in the situation. So you can do exposure or flooding, imagine, by reproducing it imaginatively, or by actually doing it with the actual stimuli that causes stress. And then I think eye movement desensitization reprocessing is worth a mention, because I have heard it, and it does talk about in the book, being useful for PTSD. It's something that's being used by our vets that have come home from war. And I don't know a ton about it, the use of eye movements, plus you're kind of you're revisiting these traumatic events, and again, trying to pair different emotions to that event, except besides the ones that were initially there. And somehow the eye movement is coordinated in there too. Social skills training, pretty straightforward. It's training people in those skills that a lot of us just naturally have. Sometimes we call social skills the sixth sense, being able to read facial expressions and get social cues. There's actual curriculums and stuff in doing social skills training, especially for our autistic kiddos. Self-management strategies, you do a lot of this in school counseling, so I put the page number there. And basically it's a lot of goal setting, figuring out where a person needs to go and how to get them there, right? I mean, especially in high school, you're doing a lot of that with the credits that you're earning and staying on track with classes and what colleges you want to go to, and helping students figure out the path that they want to take. You're doing a lot of self-management strategies. And then I threw in acceptance and commitment therapy. These really have to do with mindfulness practices. There's something called radical acceptance, which is the ability to accept your circumstances, no matter how bad they are, and be able to live within them kind of in a peaceful way. And then commitment therapy is really the ability to commit to self-change and stick with a plan. Okay. So they make up all these kind of, some of it's common sense, and they call it, well, it's acceptance and commitment therapy that we're calling it. But anyway, so I saved these last two because these are the ones that I think, at least what I've found in my school counseling experience right now, is what is being used by practitioners out there now. So if you refer a student for depression to counseling, or anxiety, or OCD, or suicidal ideation, or any of these things, they are going to probably get a mindfulness-based approach or something called dialectical behavior therapy. In fact, I had a couple students hospitalized in the last couple of years, and they were in different treatment centers, and both centers were using DBT exclusively to treat those students. And those were students who, one had an eating issue and one was suicidal. So these are approaches you're going to want to know about. And again, if you get the chance to go to seminars, anything like that, do it, because there's little portions and snippets of these approaches you can use. So for example, your mindfulness-based approach, I mean, basically mindfulness is trying to be present in the current moment, not worrying about the past or worried about the future. And so when you have students in your office, you're trying to get out of an anxious cycle, or who are under a tremendous amount of stress, you're going to be using deep breathing. You're going to be using meditation. You're going to be using things like grounding. Does anyone know what, for example, grounding is? Anyone? No? Okay. So deep breathing is pretty simple. Oh, go ahead. Did someone want?
Grounding is like, I know it helps a lot with like panic attacks. Is like, I've heard them say like using your five senses. So name 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell. That kind of brings you back like into like the present moment, into like where you are.
Exactly. Great example. So all these approaches are going to reduce anxiety. The deep breathing, I put in there a couple of apps that you can get. Breathe to Relax is free. If you have it on your phone and you can just access it, and you're working with a student, pull it up. That's what I do, and say, okay, we're going to do some deep breathing to get you to calm down. We use this with students who get injured too, and they hyperventilate a lot of times because they're scared, because they're hurt. And then the apps Calm and Headspace, you've probably heard of them already, or you may have them. There's a cost to them, but I think especially even for your kiddos who do have a diagnosed anxiety problem, we know from research that deep breathing and meditation, if practiced twice a day for 20 minutes, has an astounding effect on reducing anxiety. So again, important things to keep in your toolkit. And like you talked about, go ahead.
I know if you have Kaiser, Kaiser now offers a free like premium subscription to Calm, and I think they have Headspace too. So that's
awesome.
Cool. If anyone has Kaiser, or if I guess if you know a student has that, I don't know how you know a student, yeah. But I guess personally, if you have Kaiser,
yeah,
they offer a free premium for Calm.
Yeah.
Our school district also, I think other school districts are starting to do this, allow like through wellness centers, students can access Calm and Headspace. I actually don't know Breathe to Relax, but I know for sure the other two are offered through wellness centers sometimes.
Yeah. And those who you're familiar with it, if you're not, basically it's a kind of an all-inclusive app that will lead you through deep breathing, will lead you through grounding exercises. I have Calm, and I love even like their sleep stories. Matthew McConaughey has one on there. He reads a story, and there's this thing by LeBron James, and I think they're really good. So I recommend it for my middle school students, and I preferred Calm over Headspace, but that was just me. And then, of course, they have like soothing sounds and relaxation and progressive muscle relaxation in there too. So it's really helpful because it just directs you to do it, as opposed to you sitting there by yourself having to count out your breaths or having to do the progressive muscle relaxation too. So, and then I have another resource I'm going to go through with you too that you might want to use. So, okay, so dialectical behavior therapy, the DBT, incorporates mindfulness and those approaches above, and then distress tolerance, how to handle stressful situations, emotional regulation. And so basically understanding your emotions, what triggers your emotions, and how to manage those. And then interpersonal effectiveness, essentially how to get what you want, how to communicate what you want. So it takes all four of those skill sets and puts them under one therapy called DBT. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have a general question.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get a kid to buy into this something like mindfulness? 'Cause I know like it's hard to like say like a 4-year-old boy sit them down. Like, how can you give an example how you got them to be part of this process? 'Cause I know for me in college it worked well, but in high school I feel like I wouldn't be able to do it. So it's kind of, do you have an example?
Yeah, I've used it. I use it with junior high boys. Now, I'm not using it with the cool kid who comes in and thinks he's got it all under control. I'm using it with students who may legitimately have an anxiety issue, maybe test anxiety, maybe like I had a junior high boy who he was having anxiety attacks when he was eating, and like he would get food in his mouth and he couldn't swallow. And so then his like mouth would fill up with saliva more and more, and then he felt like he was going to choke. And so before lunch, he would come down and we would go through some deep breathing, and we did some grounding stuff too. And see, he's motivated though to do it because he doesn't want to feel like that. And he wants to be able to eat lunch with his friends, and he wants to make improvement. So really, I guess it depends on the situation that comes in your office. So, and I've had kids turn it down before too. You want to try some deep breathing? No. Okay, you're not going to go there. So, yeah, great question. Anyone
Thank you.
else? Okay. Okay, so then we get to, these were the cognitive behavior therapy techniques that were mentioned most prominently in the book. Basically, Albert Ellis came in with rational emotive behavior therapy and said that people create their own psychological problems because they have rigid irrational thoughts that need to be challenged. And he based it around these 3 irrational life beliefs that if people have, they're probably going to have maladaptive behavior. And if you think through them, you can see how that might be. I mean, if someone was trying to go through life thinking, I must do well, I must be loved, I mean, you're going to fail, right? If you can't handle failure, that's going to cause a lot of psychological distress. I must be loved. Well, there's going to be some people who don't like you. If you can't handle that, you're going to run into trouble. Or the irrational belief of other people must treat me well. I think that it makes me think of certain people in my life that I know who always get super upset when someone hurts their feelings or doesn't treat them as they feel like they should be treated. And, that's coming to the reality that that's something that happens in life, is the best way to kind of tackle that. And then the irrational belief of the world and living conditions must be comfortable, gratifying, and just, providing me with all I want. Well, that's never going to happen either, right? So he said that these three irrational life beliefs were kind of the root of all of, not all of, but a majority of our maladaptive and poor psychological thinking. And then Radesky, I have mentioned on here, because he did strength-based CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and that's basically just understanding, going through and finding out what gifts and talents and strengths a person has and using that to their benefit through the therapy process when you're using CBT. So again, that's just a rough overview. So any questions on those? Okay. Okay. A couple resources. So I think what I'm going to do first, we're going to go to therapist aid in a second, but I think what I want to do first is go to Daniel Amen. So Daniel Amen is a famous psychologist who actually, his claim to fame is that he did MRI studies of the brain and looked at brain functioning in certain individuals. And he found that, for example, the brain of an ADHD kiddo lights up in a certain way when it's activated. The brain of a bipolar person lights up in a certain way, like certain areas of the brain light up. And so he did a lot of research from those studies and put out a bunch of information on that. But what I'm going to show you is a quick and easy approach you can use in your office to help challenge a student who is having problems with could be anxiety, could be depression, could be something simple that happened in their day. And it's just 4 quick questions that you can use right away. And it's based on the concept of ANTS, which stand for automatic negative thoughts. So let me get this going for you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen. Today we're going to talk about killing the ants. What does that mean? ANT stands for automatic negative thoughts, the thoughts that come into your mind automatically and ruin your day. They should have taught you this in 3rd grade, but they didn't, so now is the time to do it. It's never too late. So, what we have found is it's the negative thinking inside your head that actually drives problems like anxiety disorders and depression and overeating and problems with your temper. And most people don't know that every time you have a thought, your brain releases chemicals. Every single time you have a thought, your brain releases chemicals. And when you think angry, hopeless, helpless, worthless, out of control thoughts, your brain releases a certain set of chemicals that make you feel bad, and it happens almost immediately. But the exact opposite is true. Whenever you think happy, hopeful, optimistic, connected, loving, kind thoughts, your brain releases a completely different set of chemicals, and it relaxes your body and helps you feel good. Now, a long time ago, I learned a treatment technique for my patients called cognitive therapy, or it's therapy for your thoughts. And part of it, we often talk about automatic negative thoughts. And being a medical student where you had to memorize like 50,000 different terms, you're always coming up with ways to memorize things. And so I would come up with lots of mnemonics. And one day I was talking to one of my patients, and he had so many automatic negative thoughts. I thought to myself, he was an infested with ants. And then I actually went home and we had an ant invasion in our kitchen. And it solidified it in my mind that often when people get anxious or when they get depressed, they're dealing with unchallenged automatic negative thoughts, or as you can see, I went out and bought an ant puppet that I've had for more than 20 years. You get ants in your head. And this is a very bad thing because these guys are really the seeds of depression and anxiety and overeating. They're the little lies you tell yourself that make you fat, depressed, and feeble-minded. So if that's true, then you have to get an ant eater like this puppet. See, I also see kids, so I get to buy toys and take them off my taxes. But I love this anteater. So you have to have an internal anteater to learn how to correct or kill the negative thoughts that are coming through your brain. And I'm going to give you a technique that is extraordinarily powerful to help you feel better fast. So here it is. Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, I want you to write down your automatic negative thought. And then I'm going to give you 4 questions to kill that thought. These questions were developed by a friend of mine, Byron Katie, who, she was a nut. I mean, I don't know how else to describe her. She was an alcoholic. She had eating disorders. She was a rageaholic. She had problems with depression and suicidal thoughts. She was a mess. And one day she woke up on the floor of a halfway house. And she realized that when she believed her thoughts, she suffered. And when she didn't believe her thoughts, she didn't suffer. And so she came up with this technique. Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down your thought and then ask yourself these 4 questions. So let me give you an example. One of our football players in our NFL study, he weighed 365 pounds. When Big Ed came in to my office, I looked at him and I asked him, I said, hey, what's the deal with your weight? And he said, I have no control over my eating. And I said, is that true? And he paused. And he said, no, that's really not true. I said, but Ed, just by thinking that thought, you've just given yourself permission to eat anything you want at any time you want. So do the 4 questions with me, I said. So the first question, so we wrote down, I have no control over my eating. The first question is it true? And he said, no, it's really not true. I do have some control. So it cracks the thought. Now, if he would have said, yes, it's true, I have no control, the second question is, can I absolutely know that it's true with 100% certainty? Do I know more than God? And he went, well, of course that's not true. The third question is, how do I feel when I believe the thought? And in this case, it's, I have no control over my eating. And what he said is, I feel totally out of control. I feel weak. I feel like a failure. I feel like I'll never get my health under control and likely I'm going to die early. So all the bad thoughts he had were actually related to the thought process that was actually not true. So the first question, is it true? Second question, can I absolutely know that it's true? Third question, how do I feel when I believe that thought? The fourth question, and this is what I asked him, who would you be or how would you feel if you didn't have the thought? And he said, I'd be in a lot more control of myself. And then the most interesting part of this is you take the original thought, I have no control over my eating, and you turn it to its opposite. So what's the opposite is, I do have control over my eating. You write that down and you go, well, is it true? And in fact, it was true. So these 4 questions are very powerful. I want to give you one more example just to show you how easy this can be. And it came from my daughter when she was 4 years old. So I was in my office, which is near my bedroom, and I heard my 4-year-old daughter and my wife talking. And Chloe wanted to get her ears pierced. And her mother said no, she had to wait until she was 5. And oh my Lord, crocodile tears, wailing, crying. She runs out of the bedroom and she crawls into my lap and she's crying. And I said, sweetie, what's the matter? Mommy won't let me get my ears pierced until I'm 5 years old. And I'm like, so? I can't wait until I'm 5 years old, she said. And I said, is that true? So I'm doing the 4 questions with her. I can't wait till I'm 5 years. I said, is that true? Yes, I can't wait till I'm 5. I said, sweet, can you absolutely know that it's true? It's impossible for you to wait until you're 5 years old. And then no lie, she rolled her eyes at me. I thought that was not going to happen until she was 12. She rolled her eyes to me. She said, of course I'm not going to die. Crack the thought for her. The 3rd question, how do I feel when I believe that thought? So, sweetie, how do you feel when you believe the thought you just can't wait until you're 5 years old? I'm mad, and I'm sad, and my ears aren't cute. Okay, 4th question. Who would you be or how would you feel? So how would you feel, Chloe, if you didn't have the thought, you can't wait until you're 5? And what she was said just amazed me. She said, I would feel peaceful. Because if you don't have the thoughts that are bothering you, you feel peaceful. And then I said, turn the thought around, honey. Turn it to its opposite. She said, what do you mean? I said, you know opposites, because we just recently read a book about opposites, you know, tall versus small, fat versus skinny. And she said, so what's the opposite of I can't wait until I'm 5 years old? I can wait until I'm 5. And with that, she jumped off my lap and she went and played with the dog. So there was no more issue. You can do this. This is not hard. Whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write down your thought and then just ask yourself those 4 questions and turn it around. If you do it, you'll feel better, you'll stop lying to yourself, and you will be more of that person God wants you to be. Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel A.
Oh, I don't want to watch that again.
Hi, I'm Dr.
Okay, so pretty simple and straightforward. I actually use this today with a student, and again, very simple situation. I had a student who came down to my office because she was crying. Her parents were out of the country for the first time, and she's staying with her grandparents, and they left like Saturday. And the whole week she's been holding in that she's afraid that her parents are going to die on this vacation and never come back. And so I just went through those 4 questions. I said, do you know, is that really true? Is that really what's going to happen? Oh yeah, it could happen. Is it 100%? I mean, you think, you know, are you God that you could tell that this is what's going to happen? And then how are you feeling when you have that thought? Well, I'm anxious and I'm not sleeping, I'm crying all the time. And so we just ran through those things and kind of broke it up. And I said, every time those thoughts come in your head, you got to push them out and say, no, I don't know that's 100% true. 99.99%, they're going to come back and everything's going to be fine. So again, simple method you can start using right away. So any questions on that? Okay. So let's take a look at therapistaid.com. First, I have to get us there. That's not it. Okay, can you see that? Are you seeing therapistaid.com? Or are you seeing?
No, we're seeing your
PowerPoint?
PowerPoint, yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Let's Let's try this again. Okay, how's that? Got it?
Good. Yep.
Okay. So, you'll hear a lot in this program that we're not therapists. And again, in my situation, I think I do a lot more therapy than your typical school counselor at a public school setting. But I wanted to give you this tool because it has been such a great help for me in finding resources quickly. And when I first got into counseling, I was constantly looking for tools like books and curriculums and things I could use for like group therapy or just in certain situations with students. And I spent a lot of money, personal money, doing that, and never being totally happy either with whatever I would purchase. And this just takes everything and puts it together in one place where you can find a lot of resources. So there is a cost to it. There are some resources on here that are free. I pay $75 a year for it because it's worth it to me. You can do also like $9 a month. But I would bet you by the time you do your field work, there is stuff in here that you could use. So should be signed into my account on this. And basically it takes you to this first page where you can search for a topic that you want, that you might need to address with a student or maybe in a group counseling session or maybe with a parent. You can browse by the content type if it's worksheets. There's interactive lessons like reading books to visualization exercises, all that kind of stuff. There's guides, there's videos, there's scholarly articles, and then there's recommended products. Or you can browse by topic. If we're anger, anxiety, you can go directly to like CBT, depression, emotion, substance abuse, self-esteem. And let's just click on CBT. And it brings you to this kind of screen, and it's on your left-hand side, you still have all your topics. You can filter by your demographic, your children, whether you're working with children, adolescents, or adults. And then it gives you, again, what kind of content you might have if you want to look at worksheets or videos or articles or products or that sort of thing. So look what we already have for CBT. You can run through and we have a list of cognitive distortions. What is CBT? CBT practice exercises, CBT for kids, challenging negative thoughts. What are core beliefs? The CBT model, behavior activation. We didn't even go over that. That's an interesting one too. We have DBT here too. Let me move my thing here. So again, you have your worksheets, your articles. The featured tools are here. The Wise Mind, for example, that's one of the core ideas in mindfulness that we have. If you can see that, we have an emotional mind, we have a reasonable mind, and we don't want either one to take control over us because both of those are extremes. What we want to live in we see in this Venn diagram is the middle, which is a balance between the reasonable mind and the emotional mind. And that is what's known as the wise mind. So even if you just joined and read through these materials with all of your free time, you would gain just a ton of background. Let's see what else we got here. Let's look at stress. And I want to go to interactive tools. So I wanted to show you, like, here's an example of, see if I can find, now I'm flying through stuff and you can't see it, but for example, here's a progressive muscle relaxation video. Let's see if I can get this to play for you. Oh, it signed me out. Hold on. So I won't show you the whole thing here, but just so you can get an
Welcome to the
idea.
progressive muscle relaxation exercise. Sit back or lie down in a comfortable position and shut your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. This exercise will help you reduce stress and anxiety by slowly tensing and then relaxing each of your muscles. During this exercise, each muscle should be tensed, but not to the point of strain. If you have any injuries or pain, you can skip the affected areas. Pay special attention to the feeling of relaxation that occurs when you release the muscle's tension. Let's begin. Take a deep breath in through your nose and notice the feeling of air filling your lungs. Hold your breath for a few seconds. And then release it very slowly. Notice the sensation of the old air leaving your body and the new fresh air entering. Take in another deep breath and hold it for a few seconds. Slowly release the air. Continue to breathe deeply throughout this exercise. Now, move your attention to your feet. Begin to tense the muscles in your feet by curling your toes and the arch of your foot. Hold on to the tension and notice what it feels like. Release the tension in your feet and allow them to relax. Notice.
Okay, so I've used these like even before, like in the beginning of group therapy session, just to get us all relaxed. Sometimes it works better afterwards because you don't want them too relaxed before you start your group therapy lesson. And Daniel, yes, I've gotten boys to do this and get into it. So there's that example. Let's look at grounding techniques.
Can I ask you a question while you're looking?
Sure.
Is this a credible source used for reference? Like, say, if on our last assignment, can we use this therapistaid.com?
I'm sorry, say that again. You broke up there.
Is this website credible for like reference, say, for last project assignment with the right paper?
Yeah, I would take it. Yeah, this is all research-based resources, which is another great thing. It's already that's not going to be posted on this website if it's not the creator of it. You can read about him too. Again, that's one of the advantages. You don't have to go look at what's the latest and greatest, best research stuff. This is proven stuff. So here is, for example, a grounding exercise, which again, you could use like in a group counseling session or individually with a student.
Grounding is a powerful technique that uses distraction to help you manage your emotions. We will practice 3 types of grounding today: mental, physical, and soothing. During this exercise, you should sit upright in a chair with your feet on the ground while keeping your eyes open. I will ask many questions during this exercise. If you are comfortable doing so, answer them out loud. If not, you may answer them only to yourself. Okay, let's begin. First, we will practice mental grounding. Let's review some simple facts about the present moment. Where are you right now? What month is it? What day of the week is it? What colors are you wearing? Now, think about any uncomfortable feelings that have been bothering you. Don't judge them or try to change them. Just notice the feelings as they are. Imagine, as each feeling comes into your mind, you are able to physically remove it from yourself and hold it in your hands. You spend a moment examining each feeling.
Okay, so that's an example. It goes on from there, and you could actually listen to it and then do the script yourself with the student. Because grounding, again, like we talked about, we're just trying to get the person to be in the present moment, because a lot of anxious people feel like they're out having an outside of their body experience. And then also, you can't think of two things at once. As much as we think we can multitask, we can only think one thought at a time. And so if you're thinking about what month it is, what colors I'm wearing, what are three things I smell, two things I can touch, and then you're not focusing on that thing that's stressing you out. Okay, here's a whole thing too, like we talked about. There's going to be a lot of stuff on goal setting. So here's working on a habit plan, building new habits, goal exploration, goal breakdown, problem solving packet, therapy, goals, goal sheet, behavior chart. I mean, it's just filled with so many things, and they keep adding to it as well. So again, I would encourage you, if to give yourself just some resources that are at the tip of your fingers on a computer. This might be a good thing to do. So any questions on therapistaid.com? I'm sure there's other sites. This is the one that I've just found most useful. So okay. We are at 7:07, and I wanted to just end with some breakout sessions talking about Aaron Beck and his big contribution, which are cognitive distortions. Hopefully you read through them and you looked at the web article that I listed in the announcements. I think cognitive distortions are things we're going to challenge with students all the time. I run into it all the time, especially all or nothing thinking or catastrophizing are big ones. So what I wanted to do is put you into breakout groups for about 10 to 15 minutes. Go ahead and look up that article, and I want you to identify one or two cognitive distortions that you struggle with and give examples of how that manifests in your life, and then what you can do or use the group to help you think of ways that you could challenge those cognitive distortions. Okay. Any questions on that? Everyone's familiar with that article. You're able to access it and pull it up because it has all the cognitive distortions listed. And I like the way it was listed better than the way the book had listed them. So, and there's any number of lists of cognitive distortions you can find online too. So, okay, so let me break you up into groups. Here we go. Here we go.
family life or your
Yeah,
your
well, more
professional
my
life?
family life, but really anybody, like for whatever reason, if somebody says like they have a problem, then for whatever reason I feel like it's my problem and I have to fix it. Even if nobody asks me for help, I have that. I don't know why my mind
okay.
thinks that.
Maybe it's because of you're a teacher. You just want to help
And
them.
I guess, and a mom, I mean, I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
I have to solve everybody's problems, even though people aren't asking me to.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Now I'm just waiting until they ask, because I
Right.
think I did it
So
a
it
lot in
should
my
be
20s, but I realized not everybody wants my help.
exactly. Well, it took me almost 50 years to realize that. So, I mean, I'm not that young anymore, so I finally realized it.
That's right.
Let's see what else here.
To conclusions like, oh yeah, they're probably upset, you know, because they didn't send me an emoji, and you're like, I just don't send emojis. Like, I'm just a
Exactly.
serious texter. So
And
yeah,
that's something like I work on a lot. Like I literally have to ask someone like, are you mad at me? Because I don't know, I feel like you are, like, so I have to like straight up ask somebody like, what are you feeling? Because this is what I'm thinking you're feeling. You need to tell me what you're feeling, or else I'm gonna just assume.
yeah. And then sometimes I feel bad too though, because it could just be like they're just having a bad day and it has
Yes.
nothing to do with you, and it's just like they have to explain themselves like, oh hey, sorry, you know what, like it's just not my day. But yeah.
Exactly. That is like, that's probably like my big number one.
Good one. Let's see. What are the other ones?
Ooh, the thinking black and white, I feel like I can relate to too, you know, just I feel like just thinking one thing and the other, and then sometimes I forget, oh wait, you know, there's an in between to that. So it's like, okay, just have to redirect myself.
One of them that was interesting was number, I think, Thinking of Shades of Gray or something like number 4. Thinking in Shades of Gray, where it's not absolutes, right?
Yeah. So this is to go back to your shoulda, coulda, woulda.
We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, or also about related to number 15, where maybe it could be something good that comes with something bad.
The heavens
Fallacy.
fallacy.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, Kara, we were just trying to help Eden with, we weren't very good at it. Helping her with
her cognitive distortion.
Yeah. It's like, supplementing with, thoughts of what you're learning and if you're enjoying or trying to find the silver lining, I guess, in all of this, but not being, I don't know, we're not very good at coming up with other thoughts to replace those thoughts.
I know they become such ingrained automatic thoughts, the way we distort them. And I think one of the keys is just the recognition that, oh, I'm doing that again. Oh, I'm catastrophizing, or oh, I'm black and white thinking, or all or nothing thinking, or I got to stop that. And being able to move on from that is probably the key to most of those. Uh-oh, you guys froze up. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Okay, there you are.
Anyway, yeah, so we found this, well, Eden, actually, I should say, give her credit where credit's due, found this link on the bottom.
Well, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, but we weren't good therapists for her, so we had to be resourceful here. Anyway, yeah, and did they talk about this? Is really interesting, this one. I don't remember reading about that.
Let's see.
This one I shared with my husband.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, the thing, like the ones in the book, I think are Beck's original cognitive distortions, and people have added, and you know, you'll find all different lists on the internet. So,
you know, when I first clicked on this, I did it from my phone, and this thing popped up to subscribe. You know, oh, I guess it's right here too. And I already got one email from them because I just clicked yes and automatically did. And it's really, really interesting, actually. Of course, I don't remember at all now what was in there, but yeah, helpful website. Anyway.
That's good. Okay. Are you guys done?
Just reading through them now.
Okay.
Oh, this one I thought was helpful too with my high schoolers. The amount of relationship drama.
And they're trained to know that like that could happen. And so they're like, okay.
Oh, well, that's good then.
That is good. Good to know. I need to do it.
Yeah,
Are
me
you
too.
guys pretty much done?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I've. Oh, yay.
Uh-oh.
I feel like that happens every time in the group that I'm in.
Why is it not
random thought, but for my practicum, I've been using Google Meet, and it's so different compared to Zoom. Like just
yes, I need Google Meets.
Oh, same. I've been doing Google Meets too, and it is different. I'm so used to Zoom, so now when I do Google Meets, I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, let me get the hang of this.
I like it better.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I think Zoom. I feel like Zoom's really, really simple. Like,
Yeah.
I think, and then Google Meets is a little bit more complex. But it does remind me of Apple though a little bit.
See, I'm the other way around.
Oh, really?
I'm used to WebEx. That's what I use all day. I use
Never heard of it.
You've never heard of it?
No.
The whole district I'm in uses WebEx. It's so, I mean, I guess I like it better. So me being on Zoom like throws me off because I'm so used to like WebEx. That's what I'm on like every day.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah,
do it. Are we all back together here? Because I went to some place at some point in time that wasn't even on Zoom. I don't know what happened, but I was talking and everyone was frozen. So we all back? Okay, did you have any questions or comments? Because that's all I have for class tonight.
I have a question.
Okay, go Eden.
So, well, it's kind of related to this class. My question is about the cornerstone essay that we have to write. So, as I understand it, the cornerstone practicum presentation is connected to 522, which is this class, right? And it's all about group facilitation. And my question is, I mean, we haven't really covered anything related to group sessions, and I haven't really witnessed anything related to that during the practicum. So what exactly am I reflecting on?
Well, did you look up, you're supposed to go through the PowerPoint presentation that is attached to that on group facilitation. And then
I read it.
Yeah, and then do the whatever, you know, look through the rubric of what they're grading on and what the information they're asking for out of that. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I have practicum students too. They're further along than you guys, but
I guess I'm just struggling to find out, like, what am I supposed to be connecting that PowerPoint presentation to? Because it does ask us to do that to the practicum, but I haven't seen anything related to a group session. And we haven't really discussed anything in this class since it's the cornerstone of 522.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't.
and there's nothing really on the syllabus. The only thing you get really about group therapy is that in each chapter, there is implications for group therapy for each theory of counseling. So
Right.
maybe that's where you're going to find your information.
I had the same question. I just couldn't see the relevance of that. I just was confused. The relevance of that PowerPoint or the PDF.
I don't think we are supposed to relate it to the practicum, like to what you're actually seeing. I think you're just supposed to relate it to the theories of counseling.
It does mention that though.
You guys are going to make me go look it up now. Hold on.
I actually have it up on my screen if you want me to share.
Yeah, it says, write a 3-page paper reflecting on your experiences and learning so far, right? So experiences, I'm relating that to the practicum. Learning, I'm relating that to this course. And I just don't see the connection between all three yet.
Sarah, are you going to share it? I'm trying to pull it up. Hold on. I would assume your practicum supervisor could give you, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here we go.
I don't know, has anybody written this already? Could you share kind of what you wrote about? I kind
Yeah,
of feel like
so
it's
I
busy
think I'm
work.
just focusing on the PowerPoint itself and just kind of reflecting upon what you learned from those PowerPoint slides. So just to give an example, there's stages on there, and kind of what I did was kind of summarize the stage, and then I gave my so for example, stage 1, I'll state the information and then kind of give background of it, obviously, of what I learned from the slides. And then I'll give my opinion and how it could be relevant putting into practice as a counselor.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. What I would do in that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And probably we can add a little bit of the theories that we can use based on what we learned in EDSC 522, I think.
You know,
Because
as I
we
remember
need to
this,
cite, right?
This was like 16 weeks ago for my students, but I think I just accepted if they went through the presentation and just talked about what they learned and how they would apply it to school counseling.
Okay. Is this the correct rubric that we're supposed to be using?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it.
I think it's vague on purpose.
Okay.
So that she can see your reflection and what you've learned, how you interpret it.
So maybe it's not so different than our discussion board posts, like read the chapter and then reflect. Okay.
Yeah, unless your practicum supervisor is giving you more detailed instruction. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I just let them read through that presentation and reflect on how they might see that working in the school counseling environment.
Okay, that helps. I mean, I did ask her, and she said that we had to relate it to the practicum a little bit, and it says experience on the instructions when you go to submit the assignment. So I was a little
Well, and
bit confused.
these are different times. You're not gonna all have that.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
that helps if I think about these questions that you guys brought up, like what did I learn from the PowerPoint and how can I relate it to being a school counselor? I'll just do that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, it's 7:29. Let's close in prayer. I'm going to pray quick for our friend George. He's not with us. I don't have all the details, but he had to go into surgery and then there were complications and then he had to go for another procedure. So concerned about him and hoping he can rejoin us, but I'm not sure. So keep him in your prayers. Okay. All right, let's close. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you again for our time together tonight. Thank you for an opportunity to learn and to grow. I thank you for open hearts and open minds of the students and their willingness to learn and ask questions. Father, we know that you have great plans for us. We know that you have plans for George. And so we pray that you would just lay your hand upon him, just heal him, bring him back to us, keep him safe, let him feel your comfort and your strength at this time. Father, we don't know all the needs there, but you do. And so we pray that just divine protection for him at this time. I pray that you will take care of all these students as they go on their way tonight. Just give them wisdom and decisions they need to make in their practicum and with their classes. Encouragement where they need it to keep going along this long path. Father, I pray that you will bring them back all safely on May 5th so we can meet together again. In your son's name we pray. Amen. All right, you guys, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.